had Sims on the ground. He was on his stomach, would not follow commands to remove his hands. The officers weren't able to forcibly remove Sims' hands from under his stomach and inside of his waistband. In the span of about 10 seconds, officers struck Sims with fists in the head, shoulder, and back area numerous times to try and gain compliance. An officer deployed his taser on 2 separate occasions. After the second deployment, officers were able to physically force Sims' hands from underneath his waistband and behind his back to be handcuffed. Sims never complied with any of the officers' commands. Everything that took place was by the force of the officers, not by any compliance from the suspect. Once handcuffed, an officer verbalizes, "We're good," and from that point, no other force is used, and the interaction between the officers and Sims is very non-adversarial after that point. Sims is brought to his feet, searched, and removed from traffic. An officer immediately requests for medical response to treat Sims and describes the injuries Sims sustained to the dispatcher. Sims was not in possession of any weapons.
Maybe. Hands out of your pants. We were at the 3 and 4 out with one. Will you send us another? Stop! Stop, bro! Get on the ground. Get on the ground. I said I was gonna. Keep your hands. Keep your hands. Keep your hands. Your hands. I'm gonna put your hands in. Give your hands. Stop resting. Stop reaching in your waist. Give us your hands. Give me your hands. Give me your hands. Hands your stomach. Hands your stomach. Hands your stomach. I just wanted to fuck.
You guys good?
Yeah.
You good?
That's the one on there for you. Yeah. We were at the 3 medical for approximately 30-year-old male. Conscious bleeding from the lower last resistance. Just sit him down right here. 1750 Washington.
All right.
Sit down! Why are you reaching like you got a gun, dude?
My problems aren't your problems, bro.
Okay, and you're trying to make me do something stupid to you?
Stop resting. Stop reaching in your waist. Give your hands. Give me your hands. Give me your hands. Hands your stomach. Hands your stomach. Hands your stomach. Good. I just wanted to fuck. You guys good?
Yeah.
You good? Hold on. I got it. You good? Roll over. Sit up. Stand up. Sit down.
Why are you reaching like you got a gun, dude? Okay, when you're trying to make me do something stupid to you?
Officers made observations at the scene that led them to believe that Mr. Sims was under the influence of at least one illegal narcotic. It is the policy of the Ogden City Police Department that an officer will report and a supervisor will investigate every event where a suspect is injured during an arrest or an officer strikes a suspect during an arrest. In compliance with that policy, the officer notified their sergeant of the event and the suspect's injuries, and an after-action use of force investigation began at that time. The investigation was nearly complete by the time the video from the bystander was released, and Ogden City Police Administration had been made aware of the event by the investigating sergeant. There's body-worn camera footage from all 4 officers. We released the 2 that showed the event in the most detail because it's time-consuming to redact a large amount of video. There was significant interaction between the officers and Mr. Sims after the arrest. This took place in the ambulance, at the hospital, and at the Weber County Jail. There is also a phone call between Mr. Sims and his mother at the Weber County Jail.
Why did they beat you up?
I don't know, Mom.
Because they said you were resisting, because you ran? Did they say you were running from them?
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. But I was going across the street and I did this stupid ass finger gun thing, honestly. Okay, but,
So you were just really messed up, huh? Do you even know what happened? Or were you just that messed up?
oh, I was pretty fucked up. I was basically on everything from that time DMN, so.
102. What did you just say, son?
So I was pretty fucked up on everything from my plan to MDMA, so. All I know is they showed me the video and they were like, oh, no, you gave me everything.
An officer also had a conversation with Mr. Sims at the Weber County Jail while I was in a holding cell, just a casual conversation. Asked him what had happened. Mr. Sims told him he got his blank beat. They tased me. I've never been tased like that before. Sean showed the officer in the middle of the back and the side where he was tased. He asked him when he asked him why, Mr. Sims told him that he had pretended he had a gun and made a gesture at me to describe the event. Sean put his hand in his waistband and quickly pulled it out with his finger in the shape of a gun and pointed it out in front of him. The officer says he asked Sean why he would do that, and Sean began to explain to him that, quote, he's had a lot of problems with his mind and that he was hoping OPD would have shot me. Mr. Sims went on to explain he'd just been recently kicked out of his home, and his probation officer knew that his probation officer would be coming to pick him up. He'd spent most of his life in jail and he didn't want to go back. The officer expressed his sympathy for the situation, and Mr. Sims replied by saying, yeah, man, you guys OPD are cool. I'm just a little messed up in the head. The Ogden City Police Department after-action use of force investigation has been completed, and all 4 officers' use of force has been found to be justified. I have asked the Weber County Attorney's Office to conduct a criminal review of the event, in addition to the ongoing criminal case against Mr. Sims, to ensure no laws were violated by our officers. My understanding of the injuries to Mr. Sims is facial fractures and bleeding in one eye. The Ogden Police Department is committed to transparency. And this use of force, like all other officer uses of force, are reported on our use of force transparency dashboard on our website every month. Some experts have rushed to judgment publicly without taking the time or exercising the patience to gather all the facts and information. I would describe that behavior in general as dangerous and disingenuous. As I mentioned earlier, all of these videos and the audio recording will be released immediately after this press conference through our PIO, Lieutenant Will Farr, and on our OPD Facebook page. And we'll take any questions you have, just one at a time.
Explain when it comes to like striking or punching. I know members of the public might be driving by and may not understand what's going on or why. Kind of explain why this situation as far as like active resistance and what would warrant striking or punching to get someone to comply.
Yeah, thank you. And as I mentioned, our policy in the Ogden Police Department's number 3. It's posted on our website. And it describes resistance in several different forms, active resistance and active aggression. Mr. Sims running from the officers or failing to put his arms behind his back would be described as active resistance. Mr. Sims placing his hand in his waistband like he has a gun, pulling what would make them believe is a gun and pointing it towards them and blading off at them like he's about to shoot at them would be described as active aggression. So officers are able to respond with whatever force necessary at that time to bring the situation quickly under control. I read the officers' reports, I've watched the video, and I've read the interaction from the after-action investigation, and I do believe those officers were in fear for their life. The suspect had and was trying to access a gun. They were trying to bring the situation as quickly under control as possible.
Did the officers recognize Sean from prior interactions? It sounds like he was arrested in nearly the same circumstance a month ago.
Yeah, yes. I know he's had other, I believe up to 3 other interactions with us where he's been in the roadway, not been completely of necessarily the right mind, not been cooperative. So there's been other interactions. I'm not aware of these officers specifically knowing who he was at this point.
As far as the injuries, you said, I believe you said facial fractures and bleeding of the eye?
Bleeding behind the eye is what I was told. That's not, that's just what I was told secondhand from the officers who were at the hospital with him.
His mom said he had a broken nose and a fractured jaw and a broken orbital socket and loss of vision. Is any of that?
Not that what I've been told is just what I told you. Facial fractures and bleeding behind one eye is what I was told.
Why did they focus on the face if it was his hands that were more of the concern?
They're just trying, these are called distraction strikes, and they're trying to get anything they can do to get that suspect to give up on what they're trying to access in their waistband. And they're striking, you saw the officer strike in the back and the shoulder as well. Those weren't having an effect. That's when the officer who was at the area of the head did start striking into the head as well. They're just doing anything they can to get that individual to get their hands out from under them without a gun to be able to shoot them. And I didn't tell you this, but I'll just remind all of you, June of last year, our officers, 2 of them, encountered this individual behind Costco.
Stop! Stop! Don't move your hands. Let's just talk, okay? Keep your hands on your pocket, please. All right? You want to talk to me? Turn around for a second. Sit down. Okay? Sit down. All right.
I'll leave this up for a second, but just as a quick reminder, last year we had a suspect who was involved in an altercation where someone had been struck. He fled, wasn't armed, but it turned out his wish was to die at the hands of the police officers. He was going to do anything he could to force the police officer to shoot him, even if it meant shooting the police officers, is basically what happened. This is what took place. Maybe. It's the end of the.
It's okay, no, it's okay, he'll do it, man.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I get it.
Thanks, Jason.
Hands off! Stop! Two 7, we stopped. We're on the south end of Costco. All right, just turn around real quick. No, yeah, no. You're detained right now. Shoot me. We're gonna shoot you. No. I'm gonna stop. Shoot me. No. Yes. Why? Come on. Let's just talk. Look. Just shoot me. Stop, dude. Just shoot me. Stop, please.
Just that present mode in the bottom corner there. There you go. And just play it.
Hands off.
You're gonna have to move back forward again.
Hands off.
Apologize.
Hands off. Stop. Come. Hands off. Hands off. Stop. Come with your hands. Let's just talk, okay? Keep your hands on your pocket, please. All right? You want to talk to me? Hands off. Stop. Come with your hands. Let's just talk, okay? Keep your hands on your pocket, please. All right? You want to talk to me? Turn around for a second. Sit down. Okay? Sit down. All right. Oscar. All right, just turn around real quick. No, yeah, no. You're detained right now. Shoot me. We're gonna shoot you. No. I'm gonna stop. No. Yes. Why? Come on. Let's just talk. Look. Just shoot me. Stop, dude. Just shoot me. Stop. Please. Dude, let's talk. No. Sit down. What happened? Please. What happened? Just here. Hands behind your back. No. Hands behind your back. Please, just shoot me. Hands behind your back. Please. No, I'm not gonna shoot you. Yes. Dude, come here. Let's just talk. I want to die. I'm suicidal. Okay. I can get you to the hospital. You want to go to the hospital? Yes. Okay, come here. Sit down. We're gonna talk. Let's just sit right here, bro. What are you talking? Have a broken. Here. Stop. Hands on your back. Hands on your back. No, just shoot me, please. We're gonna talk. Please, just shoot me. Hands we're gonna talk. Just shoot me. Hands behind your back. Shoot me! No, we're not gonna. Yes! No, shoot me! I'll cut your fucking throat. Stop! What do you got? What do you got? I got my gun. What? Let go of my gun! No, I'm doing it. Stop! Stop! Let go of his gun! We're gonna run, you know? Exactly. Stop! Get off me! Shots fired, shots fired. Stop! No!
So I just showed that, put at the end just as a reminder what officers deal with on a regular basis. There wasn't as much force used in this situation, and they ended up with the suspect getting a hold of an officer's gun and firing a shot that could have killed the officer, the suspect, or the other officers. So these are dangerous situations, and that's why they have to come to a quick conclusion, and that's how we train our officers. So any other questions?
Yeah, Chief, again with the incident involving Mr. Sims, the, I guess, interaction and kind of physical stuff, does that cease once he's in handcuffs?
Yes, it does.
Gotcha, and that, is that, again, just go back to training, like once they're handcuffed?
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. It's just as the Utah code reads, they should subject to no further force that is necessary for them to be restrained. He was not restrained or arrested until he was in those handcuffs. He was, to those officers, still trying to get a weapon out of his waistband.
Also, we've spoken to his mother, and she was obviously upset after seeing the video. I mean, is there anything you guys want to say to her after releasing this video? I know she, I think, is lawyered up at this point.
Yeah, I don't have anything to say to anybody specifically, but it's troubling for anybody to watch. It's not enjoyable to watch these things. None of us enjoy these things happening. And unfortunately, you know, our society has a lot of issues now with mental health and drug addiction, and a lot of times officers are the ones that are always in front of those situations trying to resolve those problems. And situations can turn ugly, and unfortunately our officers were in a bad situation. And I hope our officers or this individual doesn't have to deal with that again.
Why wasn't the,
And with Mr. Sims, the stuff that he's been booked into jail for, I mean, is he being held without bond? You guys see that?
I believe he was. I know he's on felony charges. I don't know if he's without bond, to be honest with you.
why wasn't the physical altercation mentioned in the PC online? The probable cause online?
He wasn't charged with assault of a peace officer or a threat of a peace officer. So in a probable cause statement, the officers are listing what's required to hold him on the charges that they're being held for, which were drug possession, unlawful use of the roadway. If he'd been charged with assault on a peace officer, and I think the resisting arrest was outlined in there, just to the extent that he failed to comply with their commands. But they're only listing in those statements the heart of the matter. They need to hold them on the specific charges, not a detailed report of everything that took place, which is in the police report.
But wouldn't what they did in reaction to him resisting arrest be a part of the charge too, or?
No, it would not. No, that's all detailed in very specific detail in our police report, but that's not something we would train our officers to put in a probable cause statement.
You kind of outlined it a little bit, but are you thinking that he was trying to get more hurt or potentially die at the hands of police based on kind of you showing this video, talking about that conversation he had once he was in jail? Like, do you think is that kind of what we think might have been going on?
I'll allow you to reach your own conclusions. I think that's just all information we took into account as to what his state of mind was and what he was attempting to do at that point in time and what he was thinking.
How long did it take place? 10 seconds, I think you said?
I think the entire interaction was around 19 to 20 seconds, but the actual striking and tasering took about 10 seconds before he was in custody.
And to confirm, you said the county attorney's office will also conduct a separate investigation into the use of force by police?
Yeah, to see if any laws were violated, to be a criminal investigation at our request.
Now, are you asking that the county attorney also screen charges of threatening an officer?
They already have the charges they're screening for. Not necessarily, no, I'm not asking them to screen him for assaulting an officer. I'm asking them to screen our investigation to see if they see any evidence of any.
But in addition to the charges you arrested him on, excuse me, when the county attorney formally files charges, are you looking at any additional ones to be screened with the county attorney's office?
I'm not aware of any new charges that would be added.
But they felt he was armed, right? They felt he was possibly pointing a gun at them.
Yes.
You said the investigation wrapped up kind of right when that viral video was released. Did that impact the investigation? Do you think you would have come forward with information sooner, or?
I guess in a sense, we wanted to respond quickly to the public to make sure they were aware of what was happening. So we wanted to make sure that we got it done as quickly as possible, but it was nearly completed before the video was released online. Our after-action investigations, to be honest, when I was a sergeant, were pretty quick. A lot of times they were done that evening. There's a lot of technology now that we didn't have before. So you got 4 different body-worn cameras. We showed you the redacted version of them, but there's hours and hours of body-worn camera footage for the sergeant to review all of that. Not only reviewing the use of force, we review the entire incident for any policy violations that may be contained in that incident. So it can be a long, drawn-out process. So I would say, yes, we did expedite this one to get you the information as quickly as we possibly could. We felt it was important for the public to know.
So how long did the investigation last?
So the investigation was ongoing from Saturday up until Sunday evening, and then from Sunday evening until today it was expedited to be completed so we could get the information out as quickly as possible.
So are those 4 officers back at work today, or?
They were never off work. They were never suspended from work.
So did you see anything in the video that you think could improve on with training, or do you think that was a pretty textbook arrest?
That's part of our process in the police department. We employ a continuous improvement model, not only in our training, in our strategic plan and everything we do, we're committed to a continuous improvement model. So we use every one of these after actions go to our training bureau and to our training lieutenant. And they're tasked with reviewing those for just those reasons. They're the experts in training and tactics and how we model our defensive tactics training. And that video will go to them as part of our regular process, as does every other use of force video, for them to review and decide what can we do to better train our officers to have the best possible outcomes. Less injuries to officers, less injuries to suspects.
And I'm presuming Sean Sims, he's in jail, right? So he doesn't require hospitalization. His injuries weren't such that he needs to be in the hospital.
He was released from the hospital. He was taken to the hospital. He was treated at the hospital. I don't know how long he was there, but he was treated at the hospital for a period of time before he was released to be taken to the jail to be booked.
And he was tased first and then the punching?
I don't think that's fair to say. If you watch the video, I think they took place around each other. I think there were punches probably deployed before he was tased.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Just, the code you mentioned that outlines, like use of force, you said it's on your website, is it easily accessible?
Yeah, so that's our policy. Ogden Police Policy number 3 on use of force is on our website. The codes that I cited on arrest and use of force are just Google Utah code on force online and you'll get that, or Utah code on arrest. It'll come right up, 7771 and 7777.
Speaking of that, one question we've gotten, can you explain again why no other agency was involved in the investigation so far?
Yeah, nor will there be, and that's not our protocol. An outside it's our policy on every officer involved use of deadly force to involve the Weber County Attorney's Office to investigate that. So had the officers fired their weapon, had he been struck by a car where it was deadly force, then that investigation would have been taken over by an investigation team from the Weber County Attorney's Office, and that's a county-wide policy, and it's required by state law now as well. Okay, thanks for coming, appreciate it.
Don't forget your microphones. A couple of accidentally left the microphones up here in the back.
Dibs on any leftover.
I know, right? And I'm not calling calling any of you specifically out, and I'm not even looking at any of you, so